Welcome to Ladies of Another View on back, and we have a full show today with lots of people in and out of the hot seat. And I'm here with Lori and April, who's been back from Kenya for a couple weeks now, but my first time back together with us.
It's so great to be back.
Oh, yeah, we're glad to have you back. And over in the corner seat, we have Todd McMichael. And before we get started with Todd, he's going to talk about the CO2 pipe that's proposed for 5 different states for storage of CO2. But we're also going to have then Randy Christensen. He's a public service commissioner, and he's going to talk about what's involved in siting pipelines. And then when we get through all that, we're going to talk about Medora, a lot of fun stuff going on at the Theodore Roosevelt Park, and a very touching international story we'll share with you. So stay with us. But welcome to the show, Todd. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I know that you must be tired because you are on a mission. And the issue is that Summit Carbon Solutions wants to put a pipeline in 5 different states, 2,000 miles, in order to store CO2 from 32 different ethanol plants. Did I get that all right?
Correct.
And they are going to maybe need to count on eminent domain to take over some of the property of farmers and ranchers in order to get that pipeline through. And what is your involvement in this?
So when I went to my first meeting, it was a Summit informational meeting back in October in Castleton, North Dakota. We had a discussion with Summit, and it took about 10 minutes, and the meeting didn't go very well because the use of eminent domain was brought up in that meeting in the first 10 minutes. So after that meeting, I went and started investigating what all was involved with eminent domain and how could a private pipeline that I did not deem had public use or public purpose could utilize eminent domain. And so we talked to legislators from District 22, 25, and 26 because I was affected basically in Richland County, and then some other folks were affected in Cass County, so that would have been legislators from those districts. And we just couldn't get a good answer on whether or not eminent domain could be used for that project.
And just so our viewers understand, so eminent domain is for the greater good of the community. And so whether you want to leave your house or not, eminent domain can say, yep, you're going to leave your house. So you're questioning that, right? Because it's a private company. So do they have a right to take over your land if you don't agree to it?
And that was the question that many of us were asking for. So back in August 25th on the Joel Heitkamp show, our governor, Doug Burgum, stated there'd be 0% chance that this project could use eminent domain. So a lot of us were feeling pretty good about that, but when we started investigating more and more, our legislators were saying, well, Summit is telling us that they do have the right to use eminent domain. So it took a long time to actually get confirmation that because this could be classified as a common corridor pipeline, the use of eminent domain, it would have applications with this pipeline.
Let's take a map, or take a look at the map so you can see what we're talking about here. So that's 2,000 miles. And ultimately, the goal is for them to store the CO2 under the ground. Am I correct? Or?
Yeah, up around Beulah. So it's Mercer in Oliver counties. It's called the pore space. So that's a different entity than what you would classify as a pipeline. And if you're going to have Mr. Chrisman on later, he can probably explain that a lot better than what I can, because the pore space is actually part of the North Dakota Industrial Commission, and that's who regulates that. What I'm affected by is the pipeline, and that's what I'm against.
And so you're representing the farmers and ranchers who feel that they have a right to their land, correct?
Correct.
Now, they did offer you, though, like some kind of settlement, and they did try to reach out to you and try to ease your mind, correct?
Yes, so the first easements were pretty vague. And from attorneys' opinions, it left a lot of liability concerns for the landowner, where if anything happened on that pipeline, the landowners would become liable. And so we did a lot of research on that. And then they said, go check with your insurance company and make sure there's not a pollution exclusion clause in your farm policy. And I'm with American Family, and my policy had a pollution exclusion clause. So if there would have been a rupture on that pipeline, basically they would give me $10,000 for cleanup. But if my renter's cattle passed away, or if the neighbor's cattle passed away from asphyxiation, I would not have been covered on that. So we've been working with Summit to get what they call indemnification, which is basically liability and that kind of stuff, worked out on their easements and get that straightened out. So the pipeline takes responsibility unless it's vandalism or like a nuisance type process that somebody damages the pipeline.
And that seems pretty common sense, right? And then, I mean, it seems like if they want to use your land, that they would take care of any liability. And it's only 4 feet deep, too, because that doesn't seem very deep, right?
Well, they tell us that that's a federal standard is 4 feet deep. Now, with the farmers with tiled land, we're asking them to go anywhere from 6 feet to 7 feet even. But those farmers are going to need a tile plan to present to Summit before they're going to go deeper to work with the landowners.
So I was wondering how much area this would take, what they're trying to take over. So is it just right above the pipeline, or are they talking 4 feet, 6 feet, and it could drive right through?
So they want 50 feet wide.
50 feet.
They want a 50-foot wide easement, and then for the length of your land. And that gives them the right of way for 50 feet. Now, what we do in North Dakota, and I haven't got a lot of research on this yet, but there are easements. We don't want to use blanket easements. Blanket easements in North Dakota actually are not supposed to be used. So a blanket easement means that I give them an easement and they can go any place on that quarter or on that section or wherever that pipe is going and whatever you own. It means that they can go wherever. You want a site-specific style of easement, so you tell them exactly where that pipe has to go, and then it's a better way of doing it. And we've had surveyors and other people at these different meetings we've had testify and say, you guys do not want to use blanket easements. These first easements seem to be more of like a blanket easement. So that's what they're telling us.
And what is your ultimate goal here? Because you're trying to fight them forcing eminent domain, but you're also working with Summit, right, to come up with liability. And so are you kind of working at all the angles for the best protection for farmers and ranchers?
Correct. So if you want the pipeline, I hope you can get the best deal you possibly can get. If you don't want the pipeline, you should be able to say no. Those are my goals. If I don't want it on my property, go look somewhere else. But if you do want it on your property, I want those folks to be protected and Summit to step up and take the actions that they need to take to protect the landowners that do put it on their ground. Because my problem is the first people that I've gotten yielded phone calls from, have been widows that have a lot of land, and they feel like they're getting bullied from land agents that they have hired to do this project. And so when I heard that, and I heard many say, I'm just going to sign it to get them off my back, I'm like, well, don't do that. So that was a real big driver for me to try to do something for folks. It was probably the biggest driver when I fielded that phone call. That was a Saturday morning.
Well, they need somebody like you to kind of like size up the situation, represent them, and look out for everybody's rights. So I appreciate you coming on.